All right, well, it's 5:31 p.m. on May 25th, and it is our May work session meeting of the Monroe County Council, and we'll go ahead and get started here. We are called to order. Before we move forward with the agenda, we'll just ensure that we've got the quorum here present. So we will do, so all council members, please unmute your mics and indicate by voice that you're here present when I call the roll. Mr. Deckard.
Here.
Ms. Hawk.
Yes.
Mr.
Here.
Iverson.
Here.
Mr. McKim.
Here.
Ms. Munson.
Here.
Ms. Wiltz.
Here.
All right, so that makes all 7 of us here. Very good. We will move forward with our agenda, and next up is the adoption of our agenda, and this is the agenda that's posted on the Monroe County Government website that we are working off of tonight. And there was an error regarding the numbering of subcategories, so we got just a little technical change here, and this is for item 4 and item 6. There are 2 subcategory Ds in item 4. The second D needs to be amended to E, and there are 2 subcategory Bs in item 6. The first B needs to be amended to A. Also in item 4, C2, Fund 9145 JDAI Programming, the amount for account line 30006 contractual should be 20,550. So that's 20,550 rather than 20,500. The grand total for the grant is correct. So that will be my change. Do we have any other changes or modifications to the agenda that council members would like to see? If not, we'll have a motion to amend the agenda.
Move to adopt the agenda as amended.
Second.
All right. Any questions or discussion? Okay. Ms. Freeman will do a roll call vote, please.
Go. On the motion to amend the agenda, Councillor McKim,
Yes.
Councillor Wiltz,
Yes.
Councillor Hawk,
Yes.
Councillor Iverson,
Yes.
Councillor Deckard,
Yes.
Councillor Spoonmore,
Yes.
and Councillor Munson.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
All right, very good. And next up is item 3, department updates. And I see Ms. Gregory from the auditor's office. Welcome to the work session. As always, we get a report from Ms. Gregory.
Good afternoon, Council. I have a little bit more for you today than usual. I'm going to start with the revenue report. This was sent out on Friday. There's nothing out of the ordinary to report, but I do welcome any questions as always, so just let me know if you have any. FEMA, you probably recall last month at the work session, I explained that the county's first reimbursement was approved and due to be received in around 35 days. We have still not received that. I have reached out to our public assistance program director with the Indiana Department of Homeland Security. And they are looking into it. Unfortunately, it seems it might just be poor timing and that they're very busy. She said that they're currently going through a fiscal year-end reconciliation process, and that could be the holdup, but we should have more information on that shortly. She said nothing to be concerned about yet. So still moving forward with that. On CARES, we are just wrapping up that community assistance grant program that we had in place for local businesses that had COVID-related eligible expenses. So that program concluded on the 30th of April. So since then, we have received 35 applications and claims for reimbursement that are under review tomorrow at the commissioner's work session. So we're going to discuss and look at those, allow the commissioners to ask questions, make inquiries. We have amount claimed so far, which could fluctuate as we, approve or disallow or, allow further items. But currently, the requested amount of reimbursement is $292,442.67. So in the business and social services COVID line, we currently have $129,742.32. So there's a bit of a difference there. However, there is other funding available within the COVID lines, and I know we might, the commissioners might entertain some sort of transfer request. So we'll see how that works out, but I will provide some updates via email as we move forward with that. So yes, that's the CARES program. And then moving on, the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. We are moving forward with this as well. We have created an account with the U.S. Department of Treasury and have requested the funds. Our status is still submitted, but it's under review. So review on average takes about 4 business days. So we're hoping to hear sometime this week. I was hoping before today, that would be convenient, but of course that did not happen. So as soon as I have more information, I'll let you know. I haven't yet received a response if there are more action items before receiving the funding. I did inquire. So, as I get information, I will certainly update you as well. So that's it for tonight, unless you have questions for me.
Got it. Thank you. And it looks like Ms. Hawk has a question.
Yes, Brenda, when I was looking at the cash balances from year to year, and it looked like it was growing so much. I'm wondering if we could put something in it, some kind of explanation of when it is a great deal higher from one year to the next, whether it's like some kind of sort of like maybe the CARES dollars was in there, or maybe some big distribution hadn't been made, or something that would tell us why it jumped so high. And did anybody else find that curious, or did you all just happen to know why it was higher?
I sort of assumed it was the CARES Act money.
That's exactly what it is, but I'm happy to specifically, look and make notes as that occurs. But yes, we received $4.5 million, I believe. I'm just throwing a number out there. It's really close to that anyhow.
The reason why is because you look at that a few years from now and people will say, no, what happened? And well, those that are here now would know, but we might not always be here. So if there's a little something way out of the ordinary, some kind of a notation there would be real nice if you could.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate the suggestion. So moving forward, I will do that. Thank you.
Good suggestion, Councilor Hawk. Thank you. Mr. Iverson.
So, Ms. Gregory, thank you for your report. My question is about the CARES Act. And I kind of gathered from what you were saying that the last reimbursement is still hanging out there. There's no other reimbursements past that, correct? Or are there reimbursements past that?
Okay, so FEMA, we are still awaiting reimbursement for the first approved project application. So we do have others. We have other. I don't have the total approved amount. I want to say it's around 300,000, and for FEMA. But as far as CARES goes, that program has ended. The CARES program I was speaking of is the county grant program, where the county was using CARES funding, to help support local businesses and social service organizations.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or discussion while we have Ms. Gregory with us? All right. Well, thank you very much, Ms. Gregory, and we'll look forward to hearing from you on some of these items, updates soon, and at our next work session meeting as well.
Thanks again, everyone. Have a great night.
You too.
Yeah.
All right. And next is Ms. Purdy with the Commissioner's Office. Welcome.
Yeah, good evening. I'm here for 2 items. The first one, I'll get that out of the way, is that as Ms. Gregory has already provided you with a breakdown of the use of the funds that were that you determined to provide grants to local businesses and social service agencies. I'm providing you with kind of a brief synopsis of the use of the other accounts that you guys set up at the beginning of this year. So those expenses are, you had established an emergency supply line. You appropriated that at $288,000, and we have expended only $44,000. I'm just rounding for you guys. So 40, but we've expended $45,000 of that. We have a contractual line that had $250,000. Hang on.
That sounded fierce.
There's a lot of activity there, yes.
I know.
With COVID and
It
Zoom.
is, because my air conditioner isn't working, so my service guy is coming, and that's why there's, of course, it was going to happen right now. So let's see if I can go outside here and avoid them. I knew this would happen. I'm so sorry.
No problem.
And so it's hot in my house too. Yeah, you get to do be everybody's pet. So going back to our expenses, so we had the emergency supplies, contractual at $250,000. We've expended basically $130,000 from that line. We have emergency services and housing, and you had appropriated $300,000 for that. We've only expended $25,000 at this point in time. We do anticipate the townships making a request for another $25,000 as they have almost completed or exceeded or used their original $100,000 that you guys made available to them. There's $275,000 appropriated to the food bank, and we have only expended at this point in time for the food banks $10,400, and that was just done to Pantry 279. So I just kind of give you an update on those particular accounts that you guys established for us and the community earlier this year. And then the other thing I wanted, so if there's any questions about those.
Just, are you going to send us a breakdown of what you just covered by email? I mean, do you have that? Evidently you have that, something you were reading it from.
Say that again, I'm sorry, because I was outside trying to avoid the dogs and I lost you.
I'll talk to you tomorrow about it. Sorry.
No, you're fine. Okay. So do you have any more questions on that, or are you ready to go to part
She was
two?
asking if you might be able to send that information to us by email.
Yeah, I can send you. I'll do it right now, actually.
Perfect.
Okay.
Mr. Iverson?
Yeah, I have a question about the food bank budget line. It seems like there's a lot of funds allocated in that line, but the demand is a little lower than we thought it was going to be. In the event that the demand is not there for those resources, will those monies simply roll into another CARES Act line, or how will that work?
It depends. I mean, yes, we could transfer it from, if it's in this, it would be in the same level, the 30s, or I think it's 30s. We could certainly transfer it if we needed to, but at this point in time, all of the accounts are flush, if you will. So there's no need to actually make any transfers at this point. So if it's not expended, then it's just going to remain in the county general, because it is a county general budget.
Gotcha. All right, great.
Ms. Hawk, did you have a question?
I just want to make sure that was covered. We're not required to spend this. It goes in county general. We can use it for any purpose necessary.
Okay. Any other questions on that portion of Ms. Purdy's update? All right.
Okay, so part two, wonderful, because I'm going to be able to then mute myself. Is I want to introduce Ms. Mary Elfman, our prior Veteran Service Officer, because she's going to introduce us to our new Veteran Service Officer. They have been working quite closely together the last I think couple of weeks, actually. And so I wanted to give Mary that opportunity. So I'm going to go quiet and dark.
All right.
Hey, good
welcome,
evening,
Ms. Elton.
council.
Yes, welcome.
How are you?
We're doing great. Welcome back to the council.
Hey, thank you. It's good to see you all. Mr. Stephen Miller, are you there?
I am. I'm here.
Okay, so everybody, this is Stephen Miller, your new veteran service officer. He's up and running. I have spent 2 or 3 days with him, and we'll spend a few more days with him as he needs. Just trying to help him get him up to speed and everything. He's already doing a good job getting the qualifications that he needs and that kind of stuff. So I'm gonna turn him over to you. He is a retired member of the United States Air Force, so I try not to hold that against him, but you know, you can't always have me. So ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce to you Mr. Stephen Miller.
Great, thank you. Welcome, Mr. Miller.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. It's been an interesting last 3 weeks. I've been up and running as fast as I can to try to get all of the kind of groundwork laid so that I can be as helpful and beneficial to the county residents as I can be. I've been moving fast enough that the district service officers had to slow me down a little bit, maybe moving a little faster than he would like. But to that end, I'm really getting a lot accomplished and learning so much. And I want to thank Mary in particular for coming in her retirement to help me get settled and situated in this new position. I look forward to meeting each one of you and working with you. And please reach out if there are any questions or concerns that you may have. I'm happy to help at any time.
All right, terrific. Well, welcome. We're delighted to have you, and thanks for joining us tonight. And let's see if there's anybody that has any questions for you while we've got you here with us in this meeting. Do we have any questions or any discussion for Mr. Miller from council?
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Hawk.
Yes, do you have anything planned to be participating in for the Memorial Day weekend?
Interesting that you asked. Mary is actually going to step in for me. She's going to do a Veterans Day speech. I had already had family vacation plans before this opportunity came up, so I wasn't able to do that. But I look forward to future years of that opportunity.
Thank you.
Very good.
Welcome
Ms.
aboard.
Hawk?
Yes.
Ms. Hawk, in answer to your question, I will be representing the county at the county fairgrounds for the afternoon Memorial Day service at the Veterans Plaza there at the fairgrounds. And I will also be joining the VFW at Valhalla for their 10 a.m. memorial service.
Thank you very much.
Well, I'm happy to do it. And Mr. Miller, you know, he already had vacation plans, and you know me, I don't do anything but live for the county. So I got all kinds of time to do that kind of stuff.
All right, Mr. Decker, did you have a comment?
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And Mr. Miller, welcome along. We are so excited to have you. And a couple editorial comments I'll make. First of all, best wishes in all that you do. Your office is such a fierce advocate for our veterans and such a helpful one to them. Please let us know how we can support that. As Mary knows, whatever you need, just tell us candidly, and we'll do our best to support you, support our veterans. And I also would encourage all of us that are able to go and support those events on Memorial Day and beyond, because it's our community veteran service organizations do a tremendous job in recognizing those who've served. And Indiana has given a lot in that regard, as well as this county. And anyone taking a walk around our courthouse, you'll see every aspect of that on our plaques. Long, long fight. So thank you so much. We're so glad that you are here. You're going to do great things, and best wishes as you get started.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Deckard. Anything further? All right. Well, again, welcome, Mr. Miller, and please do let us know if there's anything we can do to help you achieve your mission. Best of luck, and look forward to keeping in touch.
Thank you.
All right. And I believe that wraps it up for Ms. Purdy's update. Yes. Is there anything further? I don't.
No, I have nothing further, and it's quiet, so we're going to leave it like that.
Have some terrific guard dogs there. That's very good.
Yeah, it's my early warning system.
All right. Okay, so that wraps up all of our department updates. Do we have any further department updates? Doesn't appear that we do. So we'll move on now to item 4, and this will be a presentation regarding the Juvenile Detention Alternatives Initiative. And we have Judge Galvin and Ms. McAfee from the Probation Department joining us. Welcome, and please feel free to start whenever you're ready.
Right. Well, I only can say that I'm here to give information, but Chris is going to do the heavy lifting. So Chris, if you want to go ahead, please.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor, and thank you, Council, for allowing us this opportunity. I provided, or actually Linda Brady provided, there we go. I love this virtual world. I say, do it, and all of a sudden it appears. So you guys are seeing in front of you is just going to be a super quick presentation on an opportunity for us to brag a little bit about our local JDAI initiative and what we've accomplished in the time that we've been a participant, and then also where we see ourselves going in the years to come. So next slide, if I could. Great. You guys will probably remember we became part of the JDAI Indiana family in 2014. We were the 19th county in the state to join, and I'm excited to share that there are over 30 counties now. And those counties that are part of it, even back in the kind of infancy when we joined with the 19 counties, over 70% of the youth of Indiana are currently reside in a JDAI county. So although we're not mighty in numbers as far as percentage of counties, we are certainly mighty in number of youth and families that we are able to positively support. JDAI is an initiative of the Annie Casey Foundation, and it is really a youth justice systems reform that realizes the value of having things be locally driven, judicially led. So the state is kind of oversees our process, but every county does this a little bit differently because they realize that we are the experts in what works in our county, and that may or may not work in another county. Next slide, please. So as I said, we've been doing this since 2014, and every year we are awarded a certain amount of dollars that the state allocates. If you look at these allocations, at least my perception was, there's not really a lot of rhyme or reason as to how many dollars we're able to access. Part of that's because this is money that comes directly from the state. This is not a federal pass-through dollars. So it really is dependent on how much money the state has available. And then also, frankly, how many other counties are involved. The more counties that become involved in JDAI, obviously that pot needs to be split out a little bit differently. I am excited to tell you that we have applied for all of the dollars that have ever been made available to us, and we've always been awarded the full award amount. So for our fiscal year 21-22, which starts July 1, we will be getting $55,000. Next slide. So all of those numbers you just saw add up to over $540,000 that has been brought into our community to support these initiatives, to support law enforcement, youth and family, our community, our stakeholders. We've brought these dollars in and we've been able to do some really amazing things with them. And again, we continue to do great things. Next slide. So as I just said, the next grant is July 1st, which is just around the corner, and that's part of what we're on your agenda for today, is to approve that allocation. Some focuses of this year's grant is the continuing interrupting racism for children, providing that workshop. Race, equity, and inclusion issues, concerns, education continue to be at the forefront of justice agencies, and certainly the youth justice system is no different. We recently wrapped up 2 different sessions for the interrupting racism for children with our partners with Child Advocates, and we had, I think about 75 community members able to participate. When I say community members, that includes probation staff, that includes court staff, that includes Youth Services Bureau staff, but again, it also includes community stakeholders and other members. We've had folks from CASA, we've had educators, we have had just community members who have a passion for this. The other really exciting thing, can we go back just a second? Sorry. Thank you. The other really exciting thing we're doing is youth and family engagement. I'll talk a little bit about that, more about that in a second, but that is really starting to kind of be the center of where our focus is. When we do this racism work, when we do these equity assessments, when we do all of the work that is about changing systems, the research is really clear. And in an effort to have success in those areas, we really need to bring those populations impacted by these policies, by these practices, and have them sit beside us when we make recommendations for change and reform. So this youth and family engagement piece is becoming critical and sitting in the center, again, right in the middle of everything that we're doing with JDAI. So next slide. So the highlights for 21, incentives for youth and families to participate in work groups and committees. As I just said, making sure that we invite those persons impacted by the work we're doing and impacted by the solutions we're trying to create. So what these funds are going to be able to allow us to do is to compensate people who have expertise or that lived experience of system involvement and compensate them for bringing that experience to us and sharing their wisdom. Just as many of us are compensated for being here today or providing consultation services in other ways. We really want to recognize our community members, again, our credible messengers, if you will, and bringing their expertise to us and not just say thank you for it, but to also offer some level of compensation. Basketballs, footballs for law enforcement officers. And I'm going to stop here for a second and ask if we can introduce Carlos. He is a Monroe County Sheriff's Deputy. And as much as you guys would enjoy a story from me about this particular thing, I think Carlos has just the most amazing story that he's going to be able to share about this part of our grant initiative. Carlos, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Let me see if I can do video here. I've not really used this before. Or at least not my phone anyway.
You look great. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, so I responded to a call at Walmart. It was a call that was called in by a bystander, a parent. Saw an altercation going on. So by the time I got there, the parties had already left, or one of the parties already separated, but one of the people were still there, and they were kind of causing a little bit of an issue. So when I got there, I could see that the kids were a little bit upset. This family did the right thing by calling it in, but this individual had some issues, and they were just having some issues, and they were taking out their issues on this family, unfortunately, because they were the only ones left. Everybody else had left that he had issues with. So after got him calmed down, my focus was on the kids and the family, and they were just wanting to know more about what we were doing and how we were doing things, and I kind of talked to them for a little bit, and then I offered up these what we had been given. We'd been given some basketballs and footballs and other things, and I carry around some stuffed animals, so I offered them up, and they were really excited about it, and kind of sat down and talked about this program a little bit and what we were doing, and the family was really excited about it. They wanted to learn more about it. Actually, they wanted to pay for them, and I said, no, it's a donation. But it really kind of changed the tone for the kids anyway. The kids were really excited about it. it kind of changed for whatever they had in mind originally, whatever they had in their mind, to really a focus on, wow, look at this is really neat, and just kind of got the focus in a different direction, where a lot of times these things don't always go as easy. So I really like this program. I think it's beneficial. I think that it's if we can continue to use it, whether it's basketballs, football, stickers, or other items, I think it just helps with community relations, helps with making the connection when you're dealing with a family. Unfortunately, a lot of times law enforcement is dealing with people at their worst. So being able to take that and turn it into a positive is I think a plus. And I'm sorry if I'm moving my phone around a lot. I just I'm standing and talking at the same time, which is really hard. And that's really it.
Thank you so much for adding that true experience. Thank you, Carlos.
Thank you.
So obviously you just heard the importance of having these dollars available and really changing that perspective or changing that perception of what that relationship is. And that's what it's all about. It's to help build those bridges with community, law enforcement, kids, and families. The next highlight is that we have funds that will pay for pro-social activities. You guys probably remember we're doing some really good work with CCLP, which is the Center for Children's Law and Policy, and diversion work. And they're looking at our community to figure out how can we keep kids out of the system, and what supports do they need to be able to do that? Because oftentimes we get young people and families referred to probation because the community sees us as able to help. And we are a fantastic agency. We have amazing leadership. We do amazing work. But if there are resources that are available in the community that can keep kids and families out of our system, we want to support those. So that's what these dollars are for. They would be things like Boys and Girls Club membership, Girls Inc. membership, Smithville basketball registration, buying somebody football cleats, if that's the barrier to them being able to pay for a pro-social or positive activity that would get them engaged in positive things in our community and maybe keep them out of or limit their interaction with our system. Care packages for youth and families. You've heard me talk about these for a while. We started them a little over a year ago. We just did our, 5th or 6th distribution. This one had things like flowers, sunflower seeds and wildflower seeds in a little watering can, personal hygiene items, some snacks, always some treats, those kinds of things. Bubble wands, you've heard me say it before. I love bubbles. I think bubble wands are fun. So we included those. And a quick anecdotal story, I delivered these last week to a particular family that we've had some involvement with, obviously, and they have younger kids. And when they opened the door, it was kind of like, oh, what do you want? And then I'd come bearing gifts, and they had a little friend over. So he wanted a package, and then the little 2-year-old wanted a package. So, I'm running back and forth to my car 3 or 4 times to make sure that everybody gets something. And when I left, they were all sitting on the front steps, kind of dividing things out. And when I left, they were like, bye, probation lady, come back. And it was such a wonderful experience, and hopefully one that they will remember, that we're not just about accountability. We're not just about sanctions. We're not just about punitive, but we really do connect and care. So the care packages have been a big hit, and they will continue to be a big hit. Step Up Family Violence Intervention, as we have talked again before, this time of shelter in place and lots of time with one another hasn't always been wonderful. And sometimes families get taxed beyond their expertise, beyond their ability. So this family violence intervention will really start to target some of those domestic violence situations we get where kids and parents are having conflict. We want to start developing coping skills. We want to start supporting ability to problem solve, communication skills, all those things that are essential, not just when we're in the middle of a pandemic, but for just healthy relationships and communication. Trust-based relational intervention, we have our training coming in June, and I know we have, when we've talked about this in the past, we have folks that want to make sure that many of our initiatives are available to the community. This TBRI training, we've got folks from the school system, we have folks from our community, we have some folks from some of our local service providers, and trust-based intervention or trust-based relational intervention is an intervention style that helps us deal with individuals who are impacted by trauma. And the reality is we're all impacted by trauma. Some of us come through it differently than others, but this is really to help us understand how do we deal with those who are most impacted by trauma. Trauma can truly change our brain chemistry. And if you're in that constant state of fight or flight, you know, they call it your lizard brain. If you're constantly in that survival mode, it's impossible to learn new skills. It's impossible to have positive relationships. It's impossible to do anything other than walk around trying to survive. And so this workshop is going to help adult officers as well as juvenile officers learn coping mechanisms, learn interventions that we can more positively interact with those that we serve. So I'm super, super excited about the workshop. And these funds will just help us continue that message. The brand new thing for this year is we've got funds available to support the Monroe County Childhood Condition Summit. This was a brainchild of Judge Galvin, and I think this year we're going to be on our 4th or 5th version of it. And what we're going to be able to do is provide services for accessibility. It likely will be a hybrid model. And I see that you all have adopted the closed captioning, and that's something that the MC3 Summit is interested in exploring. So the accessibility will either be perhaps sign language or some other level of accessibility so that the summit can be available for all, which I thought was such a perfect match with the JDAI mission of inclusion and making sure that what's available for one is available for all. The last thing I want to talk about quickly is we started a book club back in, oh gosh, I think it was May or June of last year. And it was just kind of a way we were just starting with the pandemic and virtualness. And it was honestly, it just started as a way for some of us to stay connected. Well, here we are almost a year later, and we are on our 3rd book, and we have 10 to 14 people who show up from our stakeholder groups in our community. Currently, we are reading The New Jim Crow. And if any of you have read that or are interested in reading it, it's a heavy book. It's a challenging book, but it is such an important conversation. A couple weeks ago, some of the participants were just kind of feeling the weight of everything that's happening locally, statewide, and nationally. And one of the things that we came away with during that time was, but we're here having that conversation. And a year ago, we would have all been feeling what we're feeling, but we would have not had any place to express those feelings or come up with any kinds of to-do list or what action steps, or really any way to just voice those concerns. So I think the book club has built community. I think the book club has built obviously a shared language. It has become such a focal point of our race, equity, and inclusion work. It's been an absolute positive for this initiative. Next slide. Data. I couldn't do this work without the data. So this just tells you quickly that our baseline year was 2013, which tells you that that's the year before we got any money from the state. So 2013 outcomes compared to 2020. We're seeing some really, really dramatic decreases in things. I will be honest and tell you the area that we're struggling, the area that we continue to really need to focus and push is seeing these same outcomes for our youth of color. Because while they are faring better in our system than they were in 2013, the outcomes we're seeing for our white youth are still better than our youth of color. We don't have an answer as to why or how to fix that. But what I can tell you is some of our work with CCLP, some of our work with the REI work group, some of our work with Impact Solutions, we are really getting much, much better at being a data-informed department and using that data to help us identify where are those decision points that are leading to this inequity. Next slide. Lots of numbers on this one, but what it tells you is how many kids were admitted to secure detention during that time period and how much money the county spent on secure detention. I understand that the council cares about all kinds of things, but I also know that money is very, very important. And if you look at how much money we were spending in 2006 or even 2012, In 2020, we spent $62,000 for secure detention. I can tell you the cost has not gone down. When you look even at 2019, because I know 2020 was kind of an anomaly, it was kind of a blip year where people are hesitant to start setting baselines at the pandemic. But even in 2019, the amount that we were paying in secure detention is so much lower. So all of the JDAI efforts and all of the commitment from Judge Galvin and Linda and Troy and the whole probation team are really starting to pay off, not just in relationships, not just in connections, not just in building teams, but the bottom line, which is dollars. So next slide. There you go. Thank you. What questions do you have?
All right, thank you very much. Very informative presentation. I saw Ms. Hawk's hand first and then Mr. McKim and then Mr. Decker.
When you look at the dollar expenses coming down for detention, what I'm seeing is what a success story. That just means that many youth were not locked up. And for anybody who wants to know why we don't want to do that, go visit a detention center and it will break your heart. And it certainly, those visits that we had really brought it back to home to me that that's not the way to go, that we want to do everything we can to avoid. Sometimes you have to. I understand. I've been told that often enough. But it's just a quick in and out, hopefully, and before we can do something else to help them. So I'm thrilled. And I do hope that you'll share with us if there's ways that we can add to your pot of money to help this.
Well, I appreciate that. And I certainly will.
Mr. McKim.
Yeah, I'm sort of what I'm saying is similar to what Councilor Hawk is saying. And the chart about the money there is not really about the money. I mean, that's not the important thing. We invest a huge amount of money in alternatives to incarceration for youth in Monroe County. And I think that's money extremely well spent. I think that what that simply is an indicator of how little we are forced to use secure detention and how well overall our investments are working. So yeah, let's great chart. We just need to make sure we all understand that it's not about the money in this case. It's really about keeping youth out of in our communities and in their homes and out of secure detention. So yeah, thank you. That was a great presentation.
Thank you. And you are absolutely right. The bottom line is the dollar, but the bottom line is not the dollar.
Mr. Decker.
Thank you very much. I was going to add to the comments of the last two counselors to say that it's rare in these meetings that you say anything cost-wise going down and particularly counts going down. And that is dramatic. And I love the way that you started all this by talking about the personalities, talking about the program, and then you got into the data, which really backs that up. I guess my question for you is, what are the things that keep you up at night looking ahead for juveniles in the community? Where's your heartburn? What are the things we all need to be really concerned about thinking about down the road? Because it's always those things that sneak up on us rather than maybe the things that we've confronted.
Well, I will speak and then I will certainly ask Judge Galvin for his thoughts. I think my concerns are that at some point we take our foot off the gas, that we look at this presentation and go, wow, we've rocked it. We have knocked this out of the ballpark. Good job us. And then we stop doing what's gotten us this far. And I think part of that is my responsibility, certainly Judge Galvin, Linda, Troy, Jeff, it's all of our responsibility to continue to seek for and ask this FaceTime so we can talk to you all about what it is we're doing and how important your support is. I think the other piece of things that causes me a little bit of anxiety is the innovation that this program is requiring. I will be candid and tell you that 2 years ago when they were talking about paying those credible messengers, those people with that lived experience to come to the meetings, my first thought was, I don't get paid. And then I smiled at myself and thought, well, you're on the clock, Missy. You do get paid. And so, breaking down some of those biases, some of those misconceptions about really responding to the expertise that our community has to offer and being intentional and being supportive of that idea. We're currently spending some time talking about those youth and family engagement pieces. And I think one of the next coming barriers is going to be, if we're really sincerely trying to do this youth and community engagement piece, do the off hours that we currently operate under, do those meet the needs of kids and families? Does that work for them 8 to 4 Monday through Friday? And if the answer is no, what does that mean to me personally? Because I kind of like my gig where I get to work 8 to 4 Monday through Friday. And of course, Tuesday evenings when I'm hanging with you guys, but that's the exception, not the rule. So I think knowing that we have a community that is willing to be innovative, willing to be creative, willing to push the envelope a little bit, and be really okay with giving police officers footballs and frisbees and stickers, so that when that relationship is happening, it can somehow make a bad thing better. That's really where I see our kind of our next big hurdles to be. Judge?
Oh, Trent, it's not the things that I can see coming. It's the things I can't see coming. We don't know what the impact's going to be of COVID-19. And if I go back to 2014, I certainly didn't see the drug epidemic that we encountered within 2 years hitting us. What I can say is, and you can see from listening to Chris, I hope you get the feeling that we've got people who are really sharp and really dedicated, and we will try to be flexible for whatever comes down the pike. We're going to try to meet it, and we're going to try to be innovative in our approach. This JDAI approach that we use, I'd be remiss if I didn't say it. I know I sound like a broken record, but that's been a long-standing thing we've done in this county for many, many years, to try to focus on children and on rehabilitation and on making certain that they get the services that they need. And this predates me. This goes back to Judge Taliaferro. I just want to do a shout out. I do not want to forget her, and I want to make sure I say that because she's one of those people who was flexible, who was innovative, and who really cared. And you've got people, as I pointed out, like Chris, and I think it's wonderful to hear from Carlos as well. Finally, I probably ought to do one other shout out. This council has always been just outstanding in your commitment to support juvenile services and the way that we do things. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say thank you on behalf of all the children and families, because you really, we try to make a difference, but we can't do it without support, without the people who make decisions, and your decision makers who've always been there for us. So I need to throw that out there at the same time. Didn't want to get away before saying that.
Thank you. I saw Ms. Munson's hand is up.
Who's here? We're waiting on Cheryl.
Yeah.
There, I'm unmuted now. Thank you. I just wanted to thank Ms. McAfee for a great presentation. And it's something that I think everyone on the council wanted to hear. And in particular, I wanted to tell her I appreciated the invitation to participate in the JDAI Interrupting Racism training. And if there are other trainings available, I hope you will contact the council to see if we might be able to participate. Thank you much.
If you haven't done that training, it really is excellent.
It is.
Ms. Hawk?
Yes, and this question is for Judge Galvin. I know, as a reminder, years ago, we paid for treatment with what we called the welfare budget. And when the state took that over, I think you and I both shared the concern that maybe they would not allow us to put as many of our children in treatment as was our custom, because we felt like treatment was better than, detention. And that the other counties were not using treatment as much as we were proportionally. Have you ran into any problems at all? Are you still able to send to treatment as you would like to do?
That's a great question, Marty. It runs the gamut. I do have treatment facilities available that meet the needs of the kids. At the same time, often if I need to get an evaluation, I may have to wait 30 or 60 days to get an evaluation. That can be difficult. I also don't want to throw stones at the Department of Child Services, because I know Director Stignan personally, and they are working tirelessly. And so I have a lot of faith in them. At the same time, your question was direct, so I had to tell you there are areas where we're deficient, but we're working on those areas. I think we need better mental health evaluations on a short-term basis, better short-term mental health placements for our kids. I don't want to use one of those secure detention beds for a child who has severe mental health problems, who needs that evaluation and inpatient treatment, but I have to place them in secure detention. And that happens sometimes, just as we have to place adults in the county jail at times we don't want to. I don't want to see that. So these are things that judges around the state are working with DCS, with the state, trying to address. So it's a great question, but it's an ongoing issue all the time, Marty.
Thank you.
Ms. Wiltz, and then Mr. Iverson.
Thank you. And thanks so much for coming to our meeting and presenting, because it's overwhelming what you guys are doing. And I really appreciate seeing the list. And I know from this and other presentations that you are collecting a lot of data, which is exciting. But I also heard you mention that you were concerned about the differences in outcomes among people of color and others. And I'm wondering, first of all, are you getting the data that you need to support any decision making around that? And then the second part of my question is, what are you thinking? What are your ideas going forward to help improve outcomes specifically for children of color in our community?
Wow, that's a lot. Go ahead, Judge, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. I was going to say, you may want to talk about a couple of initiatives we've got going on right now. I suspected that's where you were going, but you may like to.
It is, I'm hoping we're kind of channeling one another with this. If not, please jump in and add to. The first question about the data. You might notice that earlier I said we're becoming data informed, not data driven. And the reason I make that distinction is because we've spent the last 4 or 5 years really digging into data quality and ensuring what it says is what it says and what it should say. And then we've also spent a lot of time educating ourselves about what does this mean? When you look at average length of stay, when you look at number of people admitted, when you look at violations of probation, because our numbers are so small, sometimes it's easy to look at that one outlier and explain it away. And then we have a second, probably not as egregious outlier, but we explain it away. And pretty soon we can explain away all of the disproportionality. And that's not helpful to anyone. So that's really where we've landed the last year or so, is becoming data informed and understanding what these numbers say. One of the things that we are doing that I'm super excited about, it's called a racial equity impact assessment. And there is a framework that this initiative is developed under, and kind of the Reader's Digest version, if you will, is juvenile staff with our leadership are currently looking at every one of the terms of probation and asking ourselves specific questions about those. Primarily, who is the population that this could disproportionately impact? So I'll give you a very generic example, but one that kind of gets the wheels turning is one of our rules of probation is you shall not operate a vehicle unless you are licensed. I grew up in Indianapolis, Indiana. That makes perfect sense to me. My husband grew up in a very rural community, and when he and I were talking about this, he said, I've been driving a tractor since I was 10. Like, what are you guys talking about? Why do you have to have a license to drive any motorized vehicle when, you know, we're on the farm, we're driving things? And it's those kinds of unintended consequences or unintended impact that we're really trying to dig into, because I truly do not believe that there are policies or practices that are developed that are intentionally targeting populations. We call these policies race neutral. But when you dig down a little bit deeper, you can really start to have some great conversations about how might this impact. So another example is you're not allowed to basically associate with anyone who's on probation unless they're immediate family. Well, if I'm a child and I'm living with my aunt or uncle or mom or dad, and they invite other people into the house who might have contact with probation, I can't do anything about that. I can't control that. I can't not have those people around me. Again, for me personally, that makes sense. I understand why that rule is there, but that would also be much easier for me to enforce or my child to live under. So looking at all of our terms of probation through that lens, and then the next part, after we've kind of pulled them all out, will be to make recommendations to Judge Galvin and our probation leadership about what are things that we would like to see change. Another very general observation is, I don't know if any of you have ever read terms of probation, but I've worked in this field for a really long time, and they can confuse me. You know, we don't have them written at an educational level that allows for easy understanding. So is there a way that we could make our conditions understandable? Like, can we get rid of the vows and shouts and shout nots and must always, and like just say them in English? So I think that's going to be a huge step. The other thing we're doing with that is, as I shared earlier, we are developing a youth and family coalition. And I've got 4 young people who have significant youth system involvement that have signed on to being part of our conversation. So, you know, it's not just going to be a situation where the big people sit around and go, well, I think this is the magic. Instead, we're going to have the big people and those who have that lived experience part of the conversation. And when we say this, we want this to be the rule, they're going to tell us what's brilliant about that. But most importantly, they're going to tell us what's not brilliant about that. And I think that will do 2 things. I think that will empower these young people and show them that they have a voice and we're interested and we care. And I think it will definitely make our product at the end of the day much, much better and much more likely to be successful. We also want to bring families into that conversation. So, you know, I said earlier about access. How do our office hours impact someone that works second shift? How did our COVID restrictions on bringing additional people into your appointments, how did that impact a single parent who didn't have access to childcare? You know, again, just bringing those things more to a conversation. And honestly, I think we're going to come up with a lot more questions than we have answers. But some of the work groups I'm in with some of the data stuff, what we're deciding is data is not the answer. Data gives us a foundation for the better question. the answers kind of will reveal themselves over the course of time, but it's not going to be a quick fix. It's not going to be an easy fix, but I think we are absolutely on the right track with this stuff. I mentioned the June 16th equity impact assessment. I'm hoping that all of you who are on the council have seen the invitation for attending that. It's called an office hours. It's June 16th at 1 o'clock. It was an invitation email from me. Monroe County will be highlighted in the work we're doing, but the state also is going to kind of provide some of that framework about what are these and why are they important. What's exciting about equity impact assessments is that they can be done in any industry. They are for school systems, they're for education, they're for businesses. The framework really is transferable. We will be using it within the juvenile department, but I might be letting the cat out of the bag a little bit, but the adult division is really interested in some of this work as well. So I think one of the other exciting things we're seeing with JDAI is, we used to be pretty siloed, and schools did their gig and mental health did their gig and law enforcement did their gig. But I hope you're seeing that we are really cross-contaminating so many of these systems, because the reality is these are all our kids and families. I mean, we're all connected in some way or the other. And, if we can do better for one, we absolutely end up doing better for all. And that's really the important part of this. What did I forget about our initiatives, Judge?
Well, you think you did a wonderful job of talking about what probation's doing. And I think to answer Kate also, I need to say what judges are doing. In Indiana, the Chief Justice of the Indiana Supreme Court, Justice Rush, Chief Justice Rush, is an ex-juvenile judge, as is Justice David, who also did this kind of work, and Justice Goff did some of this kind of work. I have to tell you that their commitment on race equity and inclusion has been, it's just outstanding. Justice David heads up JDAI, but these facts and figures that we're keeping locally, I'm bombarded with every time I attend a meeting about, look at these numbers of youth of color. Our numbers are going down statewide, and you can see as our JDI numbers have gone down here, that's true statewide as well. But for youth of color, not as quickly. Still longer in detention, still greater numbers in detention proportionately. I don't think that our Supreme Court they're not taking this lying down. I know these folks, and they have really made a commitment. And I think you're starting to see that commitment now at a local level, not just here in Monroe County, but in other counties. It is quite, how do I say this? Well, maybe as an example is a little better. We had a gentleman who was did a photo exhibit. He's from California. His last name is Ross. He's a photographer. And it was at the city a couple of years ago. And he was interested in reducing the number of children in secure detention. His photos have been placed have been seen all over the country, in fact, all over the world. And I think that he told me he was greatly surprised when he came to Indiana at the commitment to reduce the number of children in secure detention and to reduce the number of the racial disparity. And so I think this is something that I think you can take pride in, not just in this county, but also in the state of Indiana. I do. And I'm impressed that we have leaders at the state level who have taken this on. If you ever get a chance to run into Justice David or Chief Justice Rush, and you may at some point, because they get around a lot, but this is something that you only have to mention it, and they'll carry the conversation from there.
Thank
Good.
you.
Mr. Iverson, did you have a remark?
Thank you, Mr. President. Chris and Judge Galvin, thank you so much for being here tonight and sharing this important data with us. And one of the things, the words that you keep using over and over again, I don't know if it's deliberative or not, but it's intentional. And you're very intentional about everything you do. And I think I really appreciate that here. I was very fortunate to be able to attend the Child Conditions Summit last year. Of course, it was virtual, and but learned a lot, and it was really wonderful. And I'm looking forward to attending again this year. And one of the things that's been really capturing our attention here on the council is the increased rents in our community and the cost of living. And my question is how has housing insecurity affected the children that you're dealing with in probation or through the courts? Are you seeing a marked change in where children are able to go, or whether they're experiencing this housing insecurity?
I'll speak briefly. Chris may want to address this, but you can't offer services to kids if they don't have a place to lay their head at the end of the day. We can't worry about whether they're in school, and they don't worry about whether they're in school if they don't have a meal at the end of the day or a place to live. Yeah, this is an ongoing problem for kids, just as it is for their parents. And so we continue to address these issues, and will continue, because this is not let up. This continues to be a problem in our community. Chris?
Yeah, I absolutely concur with what Judge Galvin said. I know you all have seen some representation of an iceberg where you see this much above the water and this much below the water. And oftentimes what we talk about is the behavior is the above the water. But what's driving that behavior is what's below the water. And we are constantly trying to provide resources to staff and to our community to help educate us on how to deal with that below the water stuff. And the judge was spot on when he talked about things like truancy. If I don't know where I'm going to spend the night tonight, if I spend the night on this side of town and then that side of town, or with this family or with that friend, or in a shelter, how do I get here every day? How do I be focused? How do I pay attention when I'm worried about the things in my life, which are, kind of that Maslow's hierarchy of needs? My basic needs aren't being met. So as I said, the TBRI training, trust-based relational intervention, really is designed to start giving community specific skills and techniques to deal with kids and families who are in just that survival mode. If you don't feel safe, you can't learn. If you don't feel safe, you can't grow. If if your primary goal is to get through today, get through this meeting, get through the next 15 minutes, all of that stuff that you're hearing and people are sharing with you, you're going to sound like Charlie Brown's teacher. It's just not something that you're going to be able to absorb. So again, supporting staff and our community members and helping, how do we get past that kind of sense of insecurity? We can't fix the housing problem. I mean, JDAI is not going to fix that, but what we can do is help our community respond to and support those impacted by those issues that you just talked about.
And we're seeing more children with greater vulnerability. And this can be to drugs. It can be for exploitation. We have a number of children now who are the victims of trafficking that you wouldn't think in this community, just as I think most people in their communities in Indiana don't believe. These are issues that we now have to grapple with that, again, we weren't seeing 15 or 20 years ago, but we see now, because at a younger and younger age, kids are having to fend for themselves. And that's a bad combination when you take poverty and drugs and put all that together with responsibility on your shoulders when you're not ready for it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I look forward to working together to address some of these issues.
All right. Anything further on the presentation? Any comments or further questions? If not, we'll conclude this portion of the probation department's request. And thanks again for the very informative report. We'll now move on to item B.
Pardon me. There we go. Item B, Council, I move to approve the probation department's request to create a new account line for 0001 equipment in Fund 9123-0000 JDAI programming, and to simultaneously approve a category transfer in the amount of $1,200 from the services category to the capital category.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Ms. McAfee.
Yes, thank you. So this request, as I shared earlier, our new grant starts July 1. Well, this grant ends June 30th. And we are doing a great job of purchasing, supplying resource shop and family care packages, obviously the equipment for law enforcement. But what has become obvious to us now that we're starting to get back into in-person meetings is the room I'm using downstairs to store all of this probably needs to be organized a little bit better. So this request is to create a line that we can pay for a storage cabinet so that we can organize inventory and keep things up off the floor or off tables. This is not about security, that we are having things taken without permission or that things are kind of growing legs and walking away. It's not about that. It really is just about being able to organize and inventory what we have so that we can be responsible stewards of state dollars and making sure that we know what we have and we're able to provide what we have when we need to be able to do that.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have any questions or remarks on this request? Seeing none, do we have any public comment? All right. We will have a roll call vote, please.
On the motion to approve a new account line and simultaneously approve a category transfer in Fund 9123-0000. Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Spoonmore?
Yes.
Counselor Munson?
Yes.
Counselor Hawk?
Yes.
Counselor McKim?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
All
Thank
right,
you.
I'll move on to item C now.
Council, I move to approve the probation department's request for new account lines and simultaneously approve additional appropriations in Fund 9143-0000 JDAI coordination in the amount of $2,920 in the supplies category and $7,080 in the services category for a total of $10,000.
Second.
All right. Have any further information on this request for us?
This just really is kind of the nuts and bolts of our 21-22 grant. So all of that stuff that I shared at the beginning of our presentation was telling you how we're going to spend the money, on what we're going to spend the money. This is really just giving you those specific line item categories of where they need to be put in order for us to be able to access them. Our total grant award is $55,000. Within that, the state provides kind of two buckets, if you will. So the first bucket is the $10,000, and that's for coordination expenses. The second bucket is the programming, which is $45,000. So obviously the total is $55,000.
Got it. Okay, any questions or comments? Do we have any public comment? All right, we will do a roll call vote, please.
On the motion to create new account lines and approve additional appropriations in Fund 9143-0000. Counselor Munson?
Yes.
Counselor McKim?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Hawk?
Yes.
Counselor Spoonmore?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
All right, and next is item C2, the programming component.
Council, I move to approve the probation department's request for new account lines and simultaneously approve additional appropriations in Fund 9145-0000 JDAI programming in the amount of $20,650 in the supplies category and $24,350 in the services category for a total of $45,000.
Second.
All right.
Right, the exact same thing. This is kind of that second bucket of money, and this just tells you where it is that we're going to pull the money out of as we continue to do the great stuff that we do and you all support. So thank you.
Very good. Any questions or comments from council? Have any public comment? All right, we will do another roll call vote, please.
On the motion to create new account lines and approve additional appropriations in Fund 9145-0000. Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Spoonmore.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
All right, and next is item D.
Council, I move to approve the probation department's request to simultaneously create new account lines, additional appropriations, and amend the 2021 salary ordinance in Fund 9141-0000 Community Corrections Grant in the amount of $556,732 in the personnel category and $17,614 in 50 cents in the services category, for a total of $574,346.50.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and I always butcher the last name of our next, it's Straight?
Right is right.
All right, I thought, okay, very good.
And you're not the only one. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and speak to not only the community corrections grant, but also the upcoming drug court and mental health court grant. 2021 marks the 38th year that Monroe County has received funding from the Indiana Department of Correction. These grants fund our community corrections programs, including our home detention, electronic monitoring, our day reporting program, all our problem-solving courts, specifically drug court and mental health court, and then also our pretrial program. Due to the pandemic and the unknown of how the pandemic would affect future budgets, Indiana Department of Correction awarded grant funding for 2021 at the same rate as they awarded our grants in 2020. So it was basically a renewal. They already awarded us funding for the first 6 months of 2021, and now they've released for the second half, which will run July 1st through December 31st. As always, we are very fortunate to receive this grant from Department of Correction. Our programs seem to be more important as ever through this pandemic. We were able to mostly operate uninterrupted, even when the pandemic was even at its worst. I would like just to make a note about future funding. The Department of Correction just released their calendar year 2022 grant application last week and gave us a very short window to turn that in, which is July 9th. Our Community Corrections Advisory Board will be meeting June 28th to approve the proposed grant budgets and prioritize our funding needs, which we have to turn in with our application. And given that there's been no state budget increase for community corrections programs in the past several years, and that DOC hasn't provided us any direction with whether we can or cannot ask for additional funding, we are anticipating that costs such as salary increases may have to come from local funds, but we really don't know what that's going to look like.
Okay. Thank you for that information. We'll see if there's any questions or comments, Ms. Hawk.
Yes, but could you just remind us who it is that determines what the salaries are to be, and at what point do they tell you what those salaries are going to be?
Yes, the state of Indiana sets the probation salary schedule. All our community corrections officers are certified probation officers. Since Monroe County is a unified system with probation and community corrections being unified, we have all certified probation officers working with our clients. And they just released, I believe, the salary schedule for 2022. The state did, and I don't have that in front of me, but it's posted on their website, and I can certainly send that via email.
Because I think we generally find out what the state's increase in salary is going to be. And when the state decides that for you, then that's, just want to make it clear, they set the salaries and that it isn't something that we do here locally. But then isn't this about when you'll be finding out what the increase might be?
Yes. So we're hoping that by the time we have to turn this in, we should have that piece figured out. But I will note that not all our positions that are funded by this DOC grant are probation officers. It also funds some field officers. We've had, I think, about 8 field officer positions.
Okay. Any other questions, remarks, Mr. Deckard?
I was just going to say, if I recall correctly, I have an email that's got the information on the probation COLAs, and I can locate that, and I'll have forward that to Kim Shell to forward to the rest of council.
I already have it.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be good to we can get that sent out. Thank you. Any other questions? Comments? Is there any public comment? All right, we'll do a roll call vote on the request, please.
On the motion to approve the creation of new account lines, additional appropriations, and amend the 2021 salary ordinance in Fund 9141-0000. Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Spoonmore,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor McKim.
Yeah.
Motion passed 7-0.
All right. And next up is item E. Or I'm sorry, item D3.
I think, or on number 2.
2.
But regardless,
Item 2.
Council, I move to approve the probation department's request to simultaneously create new account lines, additional appropriations, and amend the 2021 salary ordinance in Fund 9147-0000 drug court grant in the amount of $78,855.50 in the personnel category.
Second.
All right. Any additional information on this request?
I do not have anything additional.
Okay. Do we have any questions for Ms. Strite? All right. Do we have any public comment? All right, we'll have a roll call vote, please.
On the motion to approve the creation of new account lines, additional appropriations, and amend the 2021 salary ordinance in Fund 9147-0000. Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Spoonmore,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Okay, item D3 is next.
Council, I move to approve the probation department's request to simultaneously create new account lines, additional appropriations, and amend the 2021 salary ordinance in Fund 9149-0000 mental health court grant in the amount of $24,688 in the personnel category.
Second.
All right, any additional information on this one?
I do not.
We should be aware of. Okay. Any questions, any comments? All right, any public comment? Do a roll call vote, please.
On the motion to approve the creation of new account lines, additional appropriations, and amend the 2021 salary ordinance in Fund 9149-0000. Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Spoonmore,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Okay, and now item E.
Council, I move to approve the probation department's request to create new account lines and additional appropriations in Fund 4924-9621 Probation Cares Grant in the amount of $3,064.30 in the services category.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any additional information on this request you'd like us to take into consideration?
Yes, just briefly. So every year, the Drug Treatment Court Program and Community Corrections applies for this CARES grant, and it got super confusing this year because it's not COVID CARES. It's the local CARES board that funds programs, materials, equipment that make an impact on reducing substance use and substance abuse. As in years past, we requested funding for drug testing supplies and portable breath tests. But due to the safety of using those during a pandemic, we just haven't had the opportunity to use the supplies. Obviously, with breathalyzers, you're expelling breath all over the place, and we knew that that was not a smart thing to do. So the CARES board was still gracious enough to go ahead and award us those funds so that once we're back in full swing, the equipment will surely be used. And since we didn't do any breathalyzers in 2020 and very few drug screens, I don't have any numbers to share with you for the past year, but just to give you an idea, in 2019, we administered over 39,000 breathalyzers using a portable breath test equipment, and that was both in the office and out in the community. And then Problem Solving Court in 2019 collected over 6,500 drug tests, both saliva and urine. So the equipment will definitely be used. It's just a matter of when.
Got it. Thank you. Any questions, comments from council? Is there any public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote, please.
On the motion to approve the creation of new account lines and additional appropriations for Fund 4924-9621. Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Spoonmore,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
All right, and I believe that that wraps everything up for probation. That was a big night for probation in the courts. All right. Thank you all for being here and for the excellent information. Okay, next up is item 5, Solid Waste Management District.
Council, I make a motion to officially accept responsibility for post-closure care on behalf of the Solid Waste Management District pursuant to Indiana Administrative Code 329 IAC 10-39-3.
Second.
All right, welcome, Mr. McGlasson.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. I certainly, again, appreciate the council's time and consideration of this matter again this year. You should have in your packet copies of the cost estimates for the remaining post-closure care at the landfill prepared by our engineering firm for the municipal solid waste or MSW landfill at $1,861,741. And then a second cost estimate for the construction and demolition or CD landfill in the amount of $547,253 for a total assurance demonstration of $2,408,994. That is over $95,000 less than the demonstration that we had to make last year. Again, it is something that should decrease year by year as we go through the remainder of the post-closure period, which is scheduled to end in 2039. This This matter was discussed at our board meeting on May the 13th, and our board did approve resolution 2021-06 to bring this matter to the county council to request that the county make this demonstration on our behalf, has been done in years past. So, and then lastly, in the packet, you should have a copy of the local government financial test option letter that the auditor's office will have to complete to fulfill the county making that demonstration on our behalf. This is already have the copy of that has been provided to the auditor's office. I've had some email discussions with them about that, and assuming council approval, they're prepared to complete that document and then compile the necessary documentation to make the demonstration. With that, be happy to answer any questions.
Great. And I see Mr. McKim's hand.
Thank you, Mr. McGlasson. I just wanted to hear you tell us if there have been any material changes since we did the same thing last year.
No, I guess, and I did neglect to mention, the district does still have the post-closure trust fund that the balance of which is not sufficient to make the financial demonstration. And I apologize, I did not write down. The balance of that is in the $750,000–760,000 range. And as we commit to every year, we would certainly tap into that trust fund and exhaust that before we were ever to come to the county and ask for any funding.
Thank
you. Got it. Ms. Munson.
I think Mr. McGlasson did an excellent job of presenting the information that the council needs and that the public should hear. But he made one comment about CD landfill. And I don't want you to think that we have a special landfill for compact discs or CDs that are discarded. That is construction and demolition debris, and it has to have its own particular landfill. So thank you, and I hope that the council will consider this request favorably, as you have every year, which we thank you for.
Thank you, Ms. Munson. Any other questions or remarks on this request? All right. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote, please.
On the motion to accept responsibility for post-closure care on behalf of the Solid Waste Management District. Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Counselor McKim?
Yes.
Counselor Munson?
Yes.
Counselor Hawk?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Spoonmore?
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Have a good evening. And next up is item 6.
Council, I make a motion to approve resolution 2021-23, update to Sophia Travis Community Service Grants process.
All right. Hello, Ms. Rice.
Hello, how are you guys?
Doing great.
So you have a resolution in front of you. We decided this year to update the Sophia Travis program a little bit. And it had been, I think, 26, we did resolutions in 2008, 2013, and 2016. So it's been about 5 years, and the recommendations, what's before you tonight, is to update the Sophia Travis program so that county offices are no longer eligible for grant funding. That's because the State Board of Accounts has taken issue with that and decided that county departments really should get their funds through the regular budgeting process and not via grants. I think they don't want to look 2 different places for funds going to county departments. So that's paragraph 1. Paragraph 2, it's good given the conversation you guys have had tonight. This resolution adds a new category, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then the third change is just to make clear that all applicants need to show proof of their status as a charitable organization and registered as a 501c3. We've done that actually the last year or two, but this just formalizes it in this resolution. So if you have questions, I'm happy to address any questions you might have.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Munson, did you have your hand up on this?
Yes.
request? Yeah.
Yes. I just want to remark that every year, I think we do a somewhat better job with this grant program. And I'm very proud of the committee and the staff for the work that we do because it's terribly important to our not-for-profits. And I'm especially happy this year that we're proposing to add diversity, equity, and inclusion as a grant project category. And we'll just see how this goes. But I hope you will approve this. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Was there, yeah, Mr. Iverson?
I have a kind of a question about history. Have we ever given grants to non-501c3s that were also not government departments? Okay.
Oh, you want to speak to that? I think we have.
I mean, I don't need an exhaustive list. Yes, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I think I saw Ms. Hawk and then Mr. McKim, and then it looks like Ms. Munson.
Did you get your question answered? Because or step on that question. I just want to share just something that I find that somehow we could do a better job of if the departments would come to us and say, this is something extra that we would like to do that would have fit in this category before. This is all that's county general money. It all is county general money. So if they would come to the group and say, we've got this program we'd really like to do. I mean, we just heard some really good things that the county department was doing. Then all we would have to do is determine that we were going to do that through an additional appropriation to this department, and then just reduce it from the amount that we have scheduled for the community services grant. It does the same thing. It'll get the money to the department and it'll satisfy State Board of Accounts. So I hope we will continue to consider that because I think it's important. We know that our department heads who are so well versed on addressing some of these community situations, they've been at it for decades and they perhaps know better about how they could use dollars to make a difference. We've just heard that presentation tonight. So I hope that we'll keep a wider vision of this and still follow the State Board of Accounts guidelines.
I think that's a good suggestion. It could be something that we want to do in addition to the amount that's allocated for Sophia Travis, and so that we could address that in the budget process as well too. But I do hope that departments are talking to their liaisons about the needs that they have, especially as we're going to be considering budget requests here soon. And I think Ms. Hawk makes a very good point there. Mr. McKim?
Yeah, kind of in the same vein. I just wanted to confirm that when you're talking about county departments and requesting funding, this even includes lines of business that are currently funded entirely by grants and not currently funded out of county general, right? Like, for example, Futures Family Planning Clinic. You know, if we wanted to support that, basically you're saying that should not be, or the State Board of Accounts is saying that should not be out of the Sophia Travis Grants program, but we should rather just do a either county general or health department appropriation for futures. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Well, that's what it looks like, and it would seem to me. Of course, we've always made it clear that had to be operated under their grant program. But if we cannot do it that way, then that should be included in. I guess State Board of Accounts is saying this. We should include it in the regular budgeting process when they present it to us. But we have to be very cautious because we know that the dollars, we might not always have the kind of extra dollars we feel like we have now. That annexation goes through, we're going to be looking at reducing or holding the line on spending. So I think this could be problematic.
Ms. Munson.
Yes, I wanted to answer the question more specifically about 501c3s. We have in recent years had all 501c3 qualified organizations apply for grants. But previously, when it was difficult to get a 501c3 approval, and it would take considerable time, we did not have that as a requirement. But now it is a very smooth and much speedier process. So new organizations certainly can get this approval taken care of before they apply.
That's a helpful clarification. Thank you.
Very good. Any further questions or comments? Mr. Deckard?
I just wanted to take a moment to thank Councilor Munson, who really does a tremendous job in spearheading this committee. And I've been on it for 12 seconds, and it's awesome to see the coordination that she has done along with Michelle and Colby Wicker in making the citizen appointees and the counselors and everyone in that process, including those who will eventually apply, very welcome in this process and very informed. There's a lot of moving parts, and Cheryl, for those of you that have been on the committee, knows that she does that tremendously well. We're very fortunate to have her leadership.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Michelle, did you have comment?
Yes. What I want to do state is that I've been helping with the Sophia Travis grant since 2015. And during that time, we have had a few grants awarded to organizations that did not have a 501c. And yes, that was probably during the period of time when it was difficult to get. But we have, there's been probably at least maybe a handful that could not get the status or could not use the funds because they could not get organized. So if they're organized and they have a 501c status, it makes the process a lot more easier to make sure that they can use the funds. They are already, they're established, and we're not waiting a year, which one time we did wait over a year and finally got a check back because they just could not get their paperwork and their stuff together in order to utilize that money. And it was a rather large amount as well, so.
Got it. Thank you. Okay, anything further? Is there any public comment? All right, we'll do a roll call vote, please.
On the motion to approve resolution 2021-23. Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Spoonmore,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Okay, next up is item 6B.
Council, I make a motion to approve Resolution 2021-25, Electronic Attendance Policy for Public Meetings.
All right, so Ms. Rice is going to help us out with this one as well, too. We had considerable discussion on this at our last meeting. Ms. Rice, did you receive any updates or any changes of note?
No, I don't think so. So, and it's always, again, something you can tweak if the policy doesn't work for you as we go forward. But I would encourage you tonight to adopt the policy that's before you for electronic participation. It follows the law exactly as it was written by the General Assembly. So we fully expect the governor's order that allows for 100% participation via Zoom or an electronic means to expire May 31st. And if that does, that means that we are back to in-person meetings. Our county buildings are open, so we'll be able to do that. But if you adopt this policy tonight, then you can have electronic participation by some members some of the time. There are limitations, and those are all spelled out in the resolution. It will allow members who are traveling for work, for example, to be able to participate in a meeting electronically. Again, you can attend 2 back-to-back meetings electronically, and then you have to come to one in person. And only, half of your members have to be in person, or at least half have to be in person. So there are regulations, and we will certainly keep track of that. And we have to do roll call votes, but we can manage it all. But if you want that freedom to be able to have some partial participation, say that 10 times quickly, some people coming in electronically, then you need to adopt this tonight. So I would urge you to do this. And then as we move forward, we will work out any kinks that we find. Excellent.
Thank you, Ms. Rice, for your help with all of this. Ms. Hawk, did you have a question?
Yes, I fear I already know the answer to this, but with the budget workshops that we do, it goes on, and sometimes can go on pretty late in the evening. But we're not really making any decisions at that time. But does that still require, how are we going to work that? Are they going to still be in person?
Well, so great question. So the law says when you adopt a budget, you have to all be in person. That's not a meeting where anybody can participate electronically. The other meetings that we do are not the adoption of the budget. Those are extra meetings that we have. So departments can come and give presentations and questions can be asked. Those are allowed to have some people in person and some people electronically. So I think that if this policy is passed tonight, that's probably what we'll do. We'll have some members at home, maybe if they want to be at home or they need to be somewhere else. And then we'll have at least half of the members in person in the Nat U. Hill room.
The reason I ask that question is because those meetings, we do not take public participation in. I mean, they can listen or whatever, but we don't take public comments or anything. So I wondered if that would make any difference. Oh.
Well, unfortunately, and I mean, I say this unfortunately, Indiana has moved forward. I apologize, my dog is over here making some noise, but Indiana did not choose to go forward with 100% electronic participation going forward. So that's a decision they could have made, and maybe the General Assembly will move that direction at some point, but we aren't allowed, unless there's an emergency declaration, we're not going to be able to have 100% participation electronically. The best we're going to get is to adopt this policy and have some participation electronically. Great. Now, I would expect it to change in the future.
And the other thing I hope that you'll work with is that we'll still be able to use our laptops, because I love the fact that they now have this language at the bottom so that if you're having trouble hearing, you know what people are saying. This is marvelous, marvelous. Really appreciate it.
Well, and remember that the plan is to also, these policies only apply to the governing body members. So the plan is to allow members of the public to still be able to participate electronically in your meetings from home. And we know we've gotten a lot of participation that way. So that will continue. And our technical services department is working very hard to make sure that we are able to have that hybrid meeting participation. Members of the public can still come into the public meetings and sit with those members who are in person, but others can sit in the comfort of their home and watch a meeting and participate.
Got it. Thank you, Mr. Iverson.
Yeah, I'm fully in support of this, and I'm glad this is coming before us. I know a lot of our commissions have been receiving this, and they've been approving them as well. But one of the things that I keep hearing from constituents is so much uncertainty about masks, and the recent recommendations that came out of the CDC did very little to clarify the situation, and I think instead led to a lot more questioning about, do I need to wear a mask when I go to this store, but I don't need to wear a mask when I go into this store? And I was wondering if we needed to draft clarification language, not only for the council, the commissioners, but also for the commissions or the different groups that meet to clarify, what happens when there are a large group of people inside of a meeting. When do masks need to be worn? When do masks need to be worn? Especially since we are not wearing lanyards around our neck saying that we are all vaccinated yet. And we sometimes just don't know, or we don't know when someone's coming to a meeting that is immune compromised or that sort of thing. And I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, and I also am assigned to the health department. I have had conversations with Penny about that. The recommendation is, follow the CDC guidelines. There may still be situations where you are too close to your neighbor and wearing a mask is a good thing to do. And, certainly businesses have the authority to say in these confines, you're going to wear a mask, or we recommend it. And a lot of places are still doing that. So that's something that I can work with Penny to make sure that maybe we can have a statement rolling across the screen, or, have information on our website and on our doors to our public buildings to clarify that.
As I understand it, we are not encouraged or maybe even allowed to ask participants that show up in person whether or not they have been vaccinated.
Oh, no, you're not.
We're not asking.
Yeah. So, I think that would be good to have that language scrolling across, or however we do it.
Ms. Hawk?
If someone feels uncomfortable and they want to wear a mask, why should we stop them? But that doesn't mean that we're going to require them to wear a mask. If you haven't had your vaccination, you just might not want to show up.
I wish it was that easy.
Well, why not?
Mr. McKim, did you have a?
Well, I wasn't going to continue on the mask thread. So if somebody else wants to make a comment on that particular. I just wanted to ask Ms. Rice just to confirm this is essentially substantively identical to the resolution that the commissioners passed. Is that right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I'm really strongly.
I'm sorry, they did have a little extra language about their authority as commissioners to pass a local declaration of emergency, but I didn't have that in this one, but that's unique to them.
Okay, this is great. No, I'm very much in favor of this. I think it kind of cuts the right balance between moving back to face-to-face, which I think most of our constituents expect us to, whenever possible, participate in public meetings face-to-face, but also provides for an occasional absence or remote participation. And I support that to some degree, or my support is a little bit self-serving because as you all know, my job requires that I go out of town from time to time, and being able to participate remotely has been terrific in terms of being able to not miss important meetings while I'm out on travel for a week. So I think this cuts the right balance, and it will make remote participation for board members a relatively rare but available option. And of course, we're all still free to make public participation available in a hybrid model as well. So this is great.
Great, thank you. Anything further from council? Is there any public comment? Looks like we have one, and Mr. Askins with B Square Beacon.
Councilor Spoonmore, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Good evening. Hang on one second. Okay, I'm square. I just wanted to comment briefly about, before I comment, I want to echo Councilor Hawk's enthusiasm for the closed captioning that Zoom provides. It's fantastic. And anything that can be done to continue that into the future, I would stand up and cheer for. The comment I wanted to make is about Zoom links and where they're presented. And I want to thank somebody. I'm not sure who I should be thanking, but I believe it's probably the IT crew. And the thing I want to thank them for is for including the Zoom links in the event descriptions for the master calendar of county government events that's presented on the website's homepage. So if you go there and you click on an event, the Zoom link will be included. And it's not just the Zoom links that are included there. They have, I don't know if they've always done this. I think this might be a new innovation in connection with Zoom, but you can find the links to the meeting agendas and packets right there in the event descriptions as well. And the reason that's so fantastic is that, you know, I never go and actually visit that calendar, but I do use the feed from that calendar, which the IT folks have seen fit to generate. And you can take that feed and you can dump it into your own personal calendar. So that's what I use to keep track of what county events are happening. So now I don't have to ever visit the county's website for meeting purposes. I can just look at my own personal calendar. I can say, oh, the county council is meeting tonight, and right there is the link to your meeting packet. It is so fantastic. So thank you to whoever needs to be thanked. I don't have anything to complain about tonight because I guess I'm not very good at my job. Next meeting, I will try to have something to complain about. Thanks.
We'll work on that.
There's lots of county government meetings outside of the council too.
I was like, we could create some committees.
That's right.
But thank you for the comments. Always great to hear from you, Mr. Askins. Thanks for joining us tonight. Any other public comment? All right. Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote, please.
On the motion to approve Resolution 2021-25, Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Spoonmore,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor McKim.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Iverson?
Yeah, just now that we've passed that, as a matter of practice, we will now need to be alerting someone in the council office as to whether or not we are planning on being there in person, correct?
Yes, that's correct. And Kim is super organized. And so I'm sure if she doesn't already have it written down, she will soon have written down sort of a plan on that. I don't know if you want to speak to that tonight, Kim.
I'm going to make a note like the Monday before to send an email out to the council to let me know if you're Zooming or not so that we can get that. And I'm planning on having, I don't know what else to call it, but basically attendance charts to let me know who's Zooming and who's not, that kind of thing, because you can only do so many in a row and you can only miss, 50%, 50% has to be in person. So it's like, I don't want to have to send a truant officer after you guys. So,
But if you could use gold stars, that would be nice.
yes.
And I think as kind of Mr. McKim stated earlier, I think there is an expectation from the public that we're participating in person at these meetings, doing the jobs that we were elected to do there face to face with the public. And so the expectation, I think, is to attend these if you're able. And if you're not, we have some additional flexibility to accommodate for that. Ms. Hawk?
Yes. As you know, I never go on vacation. And haven't for probably 10 years now. But I know that you folks have children and you go on family vacations. And so this might be something we're going to have to start working out, because let's say if it's 2 or 3 of you plan to be on a vacation and it takes 50% to be there, I mean, that could get kind of testy there. So I'll be there unless I'm sick, folks, but.
No, I think that's a good thing to consider. It's not a license to assume. that we can plan to be out of town for meetings, because we can't all do that. That's a good point.
And I just think that if you know you're going to be out, you could just email me, that way we kind of know who's going to be, out of state, out of town, whatever, that kind of thing. So it's just going to we're just going to be more diligent on communicating. So
I remember the days when, I was out of town, and it wasn't too long ago. I just didn't participate in the meeting. I wasn't there to vote. And that may occasionally, happen as well. That wouldn't be unprecedented, that's for sure. Okay. So now I think have we wrapped that up? Any other clarification, Mr. Iverson?
We're good. I think that was a good conversation that needed to happen.
Okay, very good. And next up is our Youth Services Bureau.
Council, I move to approve the Youth Services Bureau's request for a midpoint hire of the Financial and Personnel Coordinator in Fund Lit Special Purpose 1114-0166, account line 11170.
Second.
Mr. Malone, welcome.
Good evening. I'm here. I don't have a whole lot apart from what Vicky has already submitted. We are losing Jill. She's been great for us, but she has an opportunity to retire. And so we are not going to begrudge her that and go ahead and let her go do that. But we got to find a replacement. We were able to find someone who has exceptional experience, both with the grant piece, which is something that we were having a hard time finding. And we wanted to give this opportunity, I think, with the grants, plus the other things that we have to do. This position, if you're not aware, does provide not only the financial piece that it connects to the auditor's office, but also works with me a lot in compliance, because we have a lot of reports we have to file, and we have to make sure that our personnel files are in good shape. And she has had these responsibilities, all of these responsibilities previously. So we are really hoping that we will be able to offer the midpoint for her to begin.
Got it. Thank you, sir. Do we have any questions or comments on this request, Mr. McKim?
Only just a question. Did the HR department review the midpoint hire, and what was their recommendation?
yes, they did, and it was on the paperwork that I submitted. So let me, if I can look real quick. She basically stated that she does have 10 years of experience in the financial management and government, but she did not make a statement that she, as a recommendation.
Okay, but there was a finding that she had 10 years of experience.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. And if we look at the midpoint, this is something we may need to discuss in the future. The midpoint policy indicates that it's an HR director determination. We currently don't have an HR director. And so that may be something that we need to kind of think about and discuss going forward. It just occurred to me not too long ago that resolution may be a little bit outdated, and we may need to make some adjustments to that. So, but I do appreciate our current employee who's in the human resources role, kind of taking this on as an extra responsibility, and it's a big one to have to sign off on these and be responsible for that. So, and I appreciate. I think it's all very. She's got the expertise, and appreciate her assistance with that. Any other questions or comments? Okay, is there any public comment on this request? All right, seeing none, we will have a roll call vote, please.
To approve hire at midpoint based on resolution 2015-46. Counselor Spoonmore,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
All right, thank you, Mr. Malone.
Thank you very
Oh,
much.
I'm sorry, we've got one more. We've got another item here for you.
Council, I move to approve the Youth Services Bureau's request to amend the 2021 salary ordinance in Fund 1114-0166, Lit Special Purpose Account Line 13425, Financial and Personnel Coordinator, 40 hours, Pat 3 exempt to a midpoint higher status.
Second.
All right. Any additional information for us on this one, Mr. Malone?
No additional information, just trying to make sure everything matches up with the math.
Perfect. Mr. McKim.
So this isn't a question for Mr. Malone, and I don't want to get into a long debate about this, but this is just maybe one of those examples of where we could consolidate motions in the case of midpoint hire, since the salary ordinance inevitably falls after and depends on the finding in the midpoint hire. It would make sense, I think, in the future just to do a single motion for both.
Together.
Yep.
I'll make a note of that.
Good suggestion. Thank you. All right. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Any public comment? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote, please.
Okay.
On the motion to amend the 2021 salary ordinance in Fund 1114-0166. Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Spoonmore.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Malone.
Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
You too. All right. Next up is item 8, minutes, approval of minutes.
Council, I move to approve the April 13th, 2021 regular session and April 27th, 2021 work session minutes as presented.
Second.
All right. Any comments, questions, edits, modifications to the minutes? All right. Seeing none, is there any public comment? We'll do a roll call vote, please.
On the motion to approve the minutes as presented, Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Spoonmore,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
All right, and up next is item 9. Just a reminder that we don't have any nominations tonight, but just a reminder to everybody, we do have a vacancy on the Women's Commission. If there's anybody interested, or if council members know of any interested folks who would be a good fit, please encourage them to fill out an application that can be found on the Monroe County Government website. And up next, yes, Ms. Wiltz.
Are there any base requirements for being on that commission besides being a resident of Monroe County?
I would have to see the ordinance that enabled the Women's Commission. I just off the top of my head, I'm not sure.
Okay, I'm sorry. I can look it
But
up.
we can
I
get
was gonna
that.
ask the same question. It's a good question.
I don't know either. And I'm the liaison.
We'll
can
get
find
that.
Yeah, we'll find it out and get that to you.
If there are, it would help
Sure.
recruitment for.
Yeah, they're all a little different, as I recall.
Thanks.
Okay. All right, up next is item 10. Council comments. Do we have any council members who'd like to make remarks prior to adjournment? Mr. McKim and then Ms. Munson.
So on May 14th, the EPA published in the Federal Register their notice to delist 20 sites across the nation from the national priorities list. And this is a national list of Superfund environmentally contaminated sites. Delisting means that the recommendations for mitigation have been confirmed to have been successfully implemented and that these sites no longer pose a hazard to human life or health. 3 of those 20 sites nationally are in Monroe County. Those sites are Neal's landfill, the Lemon Lane landfill, and Bennett's dump, which some of my colleagues might be familiar with because it overlaps some property that the county is still considering for a quarry heritage park. This notice in the Federal Register kicks off 30-day public comment period that wraps up on June 14th. This delisting is a very positive development because it provides documented evidence that the site remediation activities have been performed, and monitoring has indicated that the remediation has successfully contained that harm to human life and health. This is an important statement to make to the community. This delisting also removes a notable stigma in the community. Having 3 sites on the national priorities list from a single source is a pretty big deal for a city the size of Bloomington, and made Bloomington stand out, and not in a good way. Our legacy of PCB contamination has been a scourge on the community for decades. I should also mention that it's also been the source of one of the great successes of environmental activism in Bloomington. That is stopping the incinerator that was proposed to burn the PCB waste. But this delisting is an important step in the community's moving forward on this environmental catastrophe. Of course, this doesn't mean that the 3 sites are completely clean. All these sites are subject to continued monitoring and EPA 5-year reviews, probably for the indefinite future. In addition, each of these sites have environmental restrictive covenants that stipulate limitations on their use, again, most likely forever. But this is a really positive development for the community, and I encourage my colleagues and members of the public to submit public comment before June 14th and support the EPA's proposal to remove these sites from the national priorities list. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kim. Ms. Munson? You're muted.
Mr. McKim, that was great news. Thank you. I wanted to pass on news that tomorrow the Sophia Travis Grants Program applications will be open, and people can find out more information and the applications on the County Council website. Notices also have been sent to all previous participants in the last 4 or 5 years. And the deadline for the county to receive grant applications is noon on July 6th. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Munson. I saw Ms. Hawk's hand and then Mr. Iverson.
A couple of things. One, I was talking with Judy Sharp, the county assessor, and we were discussing all of the sales disclosures. If you might have, did you see those in the Herald Times? There's several pages, single line, and it's taking more and more of her staff time to get all of that entered and all the things that they have to do with that. So I think we're going to see some changes in what her office is going to be needing to get all of that done and get it done timely. That's something we have to consider. Also, we can look at the prices of homes continue to go up, which means that assessed value is going to continue to go up, which if we don't reduce the tax rates by reducing and not continuing to grow our expenses, that's going to just make everybody's taxes go up. If you keep the same rate and you raise the assessed value, it just means those people are going to be paying more taxes. So we have to take a look at that. And when we're discussing that, when are we going to, as a council, or are we going to come together to discuss the implications of the annexation fiscal changes to county government? I keep waiting for that to happen, or to be planned to happen. Maybe everybody's meeting and I just don't know whatever.
Well, I don't know what all the implications are. I think it's a good idea. We need to, but we're still kind of, putting a lot of this together. I think once we have more complete information would be an appropriate time to have that meeting. And I know that, there's some plans to get more complete information from the county's viewpoint. And, hopefully we'll be able to get that soon.
Well, certainly we know that the numbers that they are presenting, that many people looking at those numbers we're having difficulty making
Confused. Yeah.
making those numbers work out.
Yeah. It's confusing.
And so we need to start making sure that people understand to question the numbers that's being presented. Just question it, study it, and question it.
Yeah. Thank you. Mr. Iverson?
Yeah, tonight I want to celebrate the retirement of Liz Feidel at the United Way. She worked for almost 20 years as the AFL-CIO Community Service Liaison, and she's retiring at the end of this month. I would encourage everyone watching to attend a drive-by celebration, or drive-through, social distance celebration at the United Way parking lot here in Monroe County this Thursday from 4 to 6. Liz has been working very hard for our community and has done a lot of really great things. So block off some time between 4 and 6 this Thursday to stop by the United Way and congratulate Liz on her well-deserved retirement.
Very good. Thank you. Any other comments from council members? I'll just share one here quickly. I think that, as the county council, we get so involved with a lot of local issues that sometimes we may not always, be aware and see things that are happening at the national level. But I think it's important that we recognize positive developments at the national level, especially from those leaders who represent us here in Bloomington and Monroe County. And so I just want to publicly recognize our congressman, Mr. Hollingsworth. He was one of 35 Republicans in the House of Representatives that voted recently in support of the January 6th commission to investigate the riot at the U.S. Capitol. Probably wasn't a real popular vote. He was only one of 35, but I think it was definitely the right thing to do, and very much appreciate his vote on that. So just wanted to recognize our congressman for that. Any other comments before we adjourn? All right. Well, thank you all. We'll see you at the June regular session meeting. Have a good evening.
In person.
In person.
Yep.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you all.